As a kid, I'm sure we all looked into a telescope at one point or another, but have you ever wondered if there was anything looking back? For hundreds of years now, there have been sightings, reports, and experiences of what people call aliens. But it's hard to believe a story from somebody you don't know. What if your family member was telling the story? Better yet, what if you saw it yourself? There was a story my mom always told me when she was about 11 years old. Late one night, out her window, she saw a line of lights above the tree line. Curious, she sat and watched them. They made no sound, they didn't move, and for about 5 minutes she sat and watched and kept calling for her dad to come look, but he wouldn't come. Finally, she went to go get him, but by the time she came back, the lights were completely gone. Her parents told her to go to bed and to just forget about it. Until the next day after school, her mom had told her that a man from a few roads up had actually seen the lights too, and that she was not to tell anyone about them. A few months later, my mom was sleeping in her room when she awoke to find three small, table-high figures looking back at her next to her bed. Being a young kid, she closed her eyes and hoped that they would just go away. She soon fell asleep and awoke to find her room completely normal. Now, I would like to mention that at the time, my mother had never watched any movies or shows or even read about aliens. Whatever happened either came straight from her imagination or it might have been a real experience. Now, she knows it couldn't have been her brothers. She had locked their door before she had went to bed, and that left the window being the only entrance into her room, which could be a viable entrance if her room wasn't on the second floor. However, that doesn't mark the end of her strange encounters. Later that summer, she awoke to loud beeping and honking and bright lights of yellows and red and white filling her driveway into her room. Awakening everybody in the house this time, her mother had to beg her father not to go out there. Now, the police later reported that there were kids driving around that night, harassing people and trying to get people to come out of their houses, planning on shooting anyone who did. But there was no police report of this. Now, myself, from the age of about 13 to even sometimes still today, I have these very realistic dreams of either like one or three very tall, thin figures standing at the edge of my bed. I would also awake with these horrible nosebleeds that would fill my sink. Now, most of the time, I woke up with these nosebleeds immediately after having these dreams. Could they just be your average nightmare, or was I waking up at the wrong time? Now, I myself have also had strange run-ins with lights in the sky. One night, at a late-night walk with my mother, I saw these red lights falling from the sky. However, we do live near an Air Force base, so we figured it must have been some type of a flare or some type of a testing device. That was until it started moving back upwards towards the sky, before vanishing behind a set of trees. A week later, leaving a carnival, my whole family saw a triangular formation of these very same lights. Along with other witnesses, the airbase claimed that they had no involvement with these lights, and it was even reported on the news the next day. Now, before I tell this next story, I wanted to mention that still to this day, as I tell this story, I still get goosebumps and chills running down my spine. Now, a year after we first saw these lights, my mom was over at my sister's house when I saw a familiar light through my back door. It lowered all the way to the ground about 100 to 150 feet away before the light went out. I didn't think too much of it until multiple cop cars drove past my house towards where the light was at. They set up a perimeter with spotlights. However, they had the lights pointed outward, blinding anyone who looked towards that center. After about 5 minutes of me sitting and watching, they slowly started turning off their lights and packed up and left. Now, I never told anyone about those dreams of the figures at my bed until my mom had told me her story. I asked if our family had any other stories like this, and she told me that my brother, when he was young, would wake up screaming, the faces, before going back to bed. Going back and thinking about it, she remembered a story her aunt had told her one night when she was asleep. She was laying in bed with her husband when she started to feel like she was being dragged out of bed by her leg, grabbing and clawing at her husband's arm and screaming his name, but he wouldn't wake up. When it finally stopped, she was halfway out of the bed. Thinking she was just dreaming, she got back into bed. However, the next morning, she found her husband's arm full of scratch marks. So, could these all be unrelated coincidences, or could it be something more? Make sure you let me know your alien encounters in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Hippie, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more spooky stories.